Well, welcome to Masterclass 2 of Engaging with the Cardano Community, part of the So You Didn't Get Funded, Now What project, which is prepared for the Cardano community. So today, we're going to talk about what happens when you didn't get funded when applying to a grant, a Cardano grant, Catalyst. More than 920 projects applied for funding through the Catalyst program's Fund 11. Some never finished the application, but only 300 received the minimum amount of votes to qualify. So what happens now? Today, we're going to talk about what makes a project get funded, what should project teams do before asking for funds, how can a proposal get seen by the right people, and what are the other ways to make sure your proposal is ready to be funded. So yeah, in this lesson, we'll talk about project preparation and fundamentals and community engagement techniques and tactics.
So, and like Axel said, I think one of the important points to remember here is that not every project is ready to be funded. Thankfully, the Catalyst program is a recycling event. So Fund 12 just happened. Fund 13 will actually be happening in just a few months. So sometimes it does mean that you need to delay from one round to the next one to make sure that you have the best product ready to go in front of the community. Remember, first impressions are very important. And you really only have one chance to make this strong impression with the Cardano community. So why is engagement important? Because it is the missing link. Our research has shown that projects commonly miss out on votes and funding due to insufficient engagement with the Cardano community. You have to remember that the way that this is run is everything is voted on by the Cardano community. If you're an ADA holder, you can vote. And that means that you really need to be talking to the Cardano community. You need to be finding out what they're wanting the Cardano projects to kind of go towards. You need to be finding out like what their pain points are when it comes to Cardano or ADA or anything in the ecosystem. And you need to be talking directly with them. So engagement is incredibly important because these are the people that are going to give you the funds. Your engagement needs to combine both marketing and networking tactics. And again, those are very different things. So you're going to have wear many, many hats, I think, when it comes to this type of project and proposal. So let's get into it. Project preparation and fundamentals. So first thing you need to do is take a marketer's perspective. Is your project and benefit clear? This is one of the most important things that you can do if you've ever gone to a pitch night and heard somebody present a project. I think it's really interesting to hear who can actually present to the project in a short amount of time. We had one here the other night. We gave them 5 minutes to present their project, and some of them could not talk about their project in 5 minutes. And the person who actually did it in 4.5 minutes, I spoke with him, and he said that he had to prepare for a pitch where he had 90 seconds to say why his presentation or why his project should be funded and should move forward to the next round. And honestly, you should be able to do that. You should be able to know what exactly the pain point it's going to solve, how you're going to solve it, who this is for, and why it should be funded. You need to know very high level basics about your project. And if you can't identify those, then you need to be diving down deeper.
Yeah, and I think it's also beneficial for yourself as a project manager or just your team to be able to understand your project and clearly talk about it will help in the long term when you're building it out.
Yeah, and also for developing it. If you don't know who your project is for or what the benefit of it is, you're going to start getting sidetracked in other avenues because you don't have this clear vision of exactly what this is. You're going to start going over here, or someone's going to convince you to try this thing over here because you don't know exactly what this should be. So product market fit, will it work? Target audience, is it large enough? This is also very important. You could have a very niche audience that's cool in some markets, but in this, you do need to have enough people with enough ADA voting for you to make your project happen. So you do need to make sure that your audience is large enough within the Cardano community, which is already a niche in itself, that they're going to vote for your project. Project purpose, do enough people care? This is a little bit in your target audience, but again, you should be identifying who your target audience is and hopefully a pain point that they have, or maybe like this big wish that they have for the Cardano ecosystem that you're going to be fulfilling through your project. To finish that out, you do need to make sure that you've built a strong team. You are presenting your team when you're doing this project, just like any founder when they're pitching their presentation or pitching their company. You need to know who your people are, and everyone else needs to feel confident that those are the people that are going to get the job done.
Yeah, so on that, you need to get pitch perfect. So yeah, you need to create a clear and detailed proposal. That's generally a pitch deck. I try to think of pitch decks as the least amount of text and the least amount of slides. If you manage to get it clearly out and in the least amount of information, that's how you generally have bigger wins. It takes time. It's funny to say, but the shortest, most concise and simplest decks are the ones that take the longest. So yeah, do take the time. You need to be prepared to answer general questions, so you can work with other people, role play, and try to think of different questions people might ask you when you're presenting your pitch. And one thing that's important is that you have to do as much as possible without any funding first. It does demonstrate that you're motivated and that you really believe in the project, and that you've really come at a point where funding is necessary. So make sure that you have a pitch perfect deck and that you've done everything you could until this moment.
Remember that this is a great time to borrow friends and family and present the project to them. Hopefully they don't even know about what your project is yet. And so they're going to ask questions that maybe you haven't thought of because you've been so focused on your project. So have somebody who doesn't know about the project yet listen to your presentation so that they can ask a question that's actually going to be helpful, but that you may not have thought of.
Yeah, and also use the Cardano community. I think that's, of course, your family and friends, but you have also a lot to gain from the Cardano community. So just ask a couple people if they have 5 minutes to spare to just ask you a couple questions, listen, give you feedback. You don't need to take all feedback, but you need to listen to all feedback.
I think that's a very important point. Like, you don't need to take everybody's feedback, but do listen. Find out where the kernel of their feedback is coming from. And if it's a concern that maybe others would have, it's something that you should really take into consideration. Sometimes it's going to be a weird thing, and that's okay. But you're getting feedback, you're talking to people, you're building your engagement just like that, and you're building your presence inside the Cardano community. Yeah,
that will eventually help when you're actually going to submit your grant application.
Exactly.
Because they'll be able to vote for you.
And another great point, actually, if they feel like that they've helped your project, they're going to be more likely to champion your project to other people. They're going to want to show it off. They're going to say, hey, make sure you go look at this project. I helped out and I think it's really cool. So it's a really fantastic thing to do.
Totally. So now let's talk about understanding the project catalyst. So that's where you're going to submit your grant. So you need to make sure you know the rules and requirements for the latest funding round. Generally, it doesn't change that much, but you need to.
There are going to be small things that change that are going to affect your proposal.
So you need to make sure that you read them each time. Study past projects that were successfully funded via Catalyst. So that's a really important point. It doesn't mean you need to necessarily copy what they've done. It means that maybe understand how they formulated their projects, because that definitely helped in the acceptance of the grant. Develop, refine, and customize your project proposal. You need to familiarize yourself with the Cardano idea scale, the Cardano forum, and the very latest Cardano community and ecosystem developments. You absolutely need to become a Cardano expert. Immerse yourself in the community, and that will help a lot in the long run. So, and that's how you're going to vote. You're going to meet voters with enough ADA to support your projects. So you're going to find whales, orcas, just shrimps. I'm sure if you're part of the Cardano community already, you must understand this concept. But basically, whales are large owners of ADA, orcas still large orders,
Slightly smaller.
slightly smaller, and shrimps logically smaller.
So it's also going to be important because you want to look like you're a part of the Cardano community, because nobody wants to vote for somebody that's not been a part of the Cardano community, and it just feels like you're taking advantage of them for money.
Exactly.
So whether you're new to Cardano or not, you need to be engaging with them. You need to have opinions on what's happening in the ecosystem, and you should be demonstrating them in some way.
Yep.
Community review criteria. So when people are reviewing your project, they're looking at multiple things. They're looking for the positive impact on the Cardano ecosystem. And so, like I said, you should be really familiar with what's going on in the ecosystem, what people are wanting to have, what's the direction that it's starting to move towards, so that you can help create that positive impact. And you should really, really, really be identifying what the positive impact is, and that should be like the headline of your proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Your team's capability to complete the project. Obviously, if people don't think you're the right team to do the project, whether they like the project or not, they're not going to vote for it because they don't think you can do it. So make sure you're highlighting the things that your team can do. Hopefully, especially your team can do, but at least the fact that you're competent and able to complete the project that you're proposing.
Yeah, generally previous experiences, whether it be in or out of Web3, I mean, all types of experiences build a team.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We're preparing to do our Fund 12 projects. And one of the things that I'm actually the team lead for is something that I've done outside of Web3, which is just building a project management tool that I did for my previous job working at a book publishing house. So there are things that you can do outside of Web3 that are going to be important as they come into your project.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you've ever done something in Web3. It just people need some sort of reassurance that you have the capabilities. I mean, yeah.
Next thing, project feasibility, your plan, your budget, and your milestones. Again, this is something that you should be working out well ahead of time so that you know how much money you actually need to complete this project. And is it a reasonable amount? So are you giving the Cardano community a proper amount of value for the amount of money they're giving? If you're creating something that only 2 of them are going to enjoy and get to take advantage of, you asking for 1 million ADA is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Other things that you need to have noted are resources. What are the resources that you're using that you're going to be taking advantage of? Your success metrics, excuse me, so that you can say this is how we're showing that we're succeeding, that our project is moving along as predicted, that we are on the way to success. And the above criteria will be based upon the specific requirements of your project and the current funding round. So be aware that things do change every funding round, the amount that could be available, the type of projects that people are really looking for. Be aware of that, but remember that you do need to have all of these things outlined. These are something that any project should have, and honestly, that any project, even outside of Cardano, should have. Whether you should know what are your success metrics. You should know who your team is and why they are the team that's going to make your project succeed, and you should be making a positive impact on any ecosystem, really. So this slide is perfect for projects anywhere. Oh, we broke it. There we go. So also things to remember. Don't get disqualified. Simple thing. Don't do it. Proposals must be complete and accurate. Like Axel mentioned, not everybody who tried to submit to Catalyst Fund 11 actually completed their proposal. So obviously they're not going to get the money because they don't have a complete proposal. That should be for the betterment of the Cardano ecosystem. Again, this is the whole point of this grant system, is that you're improving Cardano in some way. So you need to be able to communicate what that way is. Be ready to start the project once the fund results are published. Again, you should have already kind of started the non-funded portion of your project so that when you do get the funds, you're able to jump right in and have that. And that should be outlined in your proposal. The minute we get funds, we're going to hire this person that we've already scoped out. He's ready to go. He just needs the go-ahead. We're going to do this, this, and this. These are the things that require that money. You must have an expected completion date at 2 to 12 months from the award. This is a little bit loose, but you really should, your timeline that you propose should be no more than 12 months. Some projects accidentally take longer than that. There are delays for whatever reason, but your timeline that you put out there has to be less than 12 months. Identify at least 2 project milestones plus the final one, including a closeout report and video. Again, you should be noting certain milestones that you can achieve. These are great for you too. Milestones are a wonderful way to make sure that you're kind of chugging along in your project and you're getting things accomplished. So this is helpful for you as well, but it's very, very helpful for the Cardano community to know that you understand how to get your project going.
And it's also how they release the funds, right?
So once your project is approved, you will have to define out very specifically, very specifically, what your milestones are for your project, and certain amount of funds will be tied to each milestone. So just remember that as you're going through the project. And then be willing to publicly share evidence of achievement and outcomes with the community. Yeah, definitely. Nobody's going to give you money and tell you to be quiet about it. They want you to share not just with the Cardano community, but with people outside of the Cardano community about this really cool thing that you're building either on Cardano, for the Cardano ecosystem. They want you to share on your socials. They want you to share, maybe you're going to have an event as one of your milestones. I don't know. Depends on what your project is. But you definitely want to share with people and very specifically with the Cardano community, because hopefully you're building value for them. And so you want to be giving them this news about this cool thing that you built for them. I think we broke it. Oh, there it is.
All right, so now let's talk about some projects that will not be funded. So, for example, projects that do not benefit Cardano in a way that aligns with Catalyst's missions and scope, projects that are not legal within the jurisdiction where the work is taking place. That must be pretty evident. Projects intending to use Catalyst funding to purchase financial products or services, including trading, investment, lending, providing token liquidity, and similar activities, and projects intending to use the funds to offer a grant as funding for third parties. These are projects that will definitely not get funded, so just don't even try.
This is not money to make more money.
Yeah. So this is DJ already talked about this last
so
week,
if you
right?
were the first portion of this series of webinars, you've probably already seen the slide, but we just wanted to point out a couple things.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you have to understand, maybe a couple of categories that you want to lean towards based on the amount of minimum votes. So for example, if you're in the open ecosystem category, you need a minimum vote of 204 and minimum voting power of 45 million ADA.
And remember that this does change every fund round, but this is what was recorded from Fund 11.
Yes, so it clearly depends, but yeah, so it really depends where you want to go, but this is a good table to understand. Different categories have different minimum votes, have different minimum requirements of amount of ADA. For example, open developers are funded. 86% have been funded in the Fund 11, whereas for leftovers or even solutions, there's so for open ecosystems there's only 50%.
Yeah. So I think it's really just important to remember that depending on your project, your competition is going to change. So be aware of that. Obviously, trends can change throughout each funding round, but I think this is probably going to stay fairly the same in the amount of competition that is happening in each type of category.
Yeah, so one thing that we can notice is that pretty much all the the categories vary between 200 and let's say 350 votes. So I mean, it's definitely necessary for you to network within the Cardano community, to get to know. Of course, whales are necessary, but it's not only about the amount of ADA, it's also about the amount of votes. So it's a bit of a mix of a balance of both. You really need to know enough people to within the community.
Yeah.
And just so you're aware, the voting power only represents like 0.1 or 0.2% of the total ADA supply. So that means that there's a lot less people that could be voting. So it's definitely something to think about, that you can get enough people to vote on your project. You just need to network enough.
And I will say, though, I don't think that networking and engaging is like the silver bullet. It's not going to be the only thing that pushes your project further along. I have seen people on X, formerly known as Twitter, that have followings. They're huge Cardano heads. They're engaging with people all the time, and they didn't get their projects funded. And it's probably because their project was either in one of these exceptionally tough categories, and or their project just wasn't clear enough on the positive value for Cardano.
Yeah, maybe they just thought, oh, since I have the community already, then I don't need to put the effort on defining the project. But yeah, it's a real balance of everything, for sure.
Cool. Don't forget, this is all in bold. Catalyst fund rules can change during the funding round. Be sure to stay updated at all times. So make sure you're checking your emails, your socials. You should be following some guys on Telegram, on X, and just making sure you're always up to date with what's going on with the funding rounds. They do these really fast turnarounds sometimes. So I know they wanted to do Fund 13 possibly before the end of the year. Which means it's really just a couple months between rounds. So things change really fast. Be aware. Votes are anonymous and weighted depending on the amount of ADA each voter has. So it's important to get votes from people who hold larger amounts of ADA, i.e. orcas or whales. This is really true. We would all love to be the underdog who gets like the mass of votes, but it's going to be more powerful for you to get somebody who has a lot of ADA in their wallet and they can vote for you. And you still need to have other people vote for you, obviously, but do try and aim for some people who have the larger wallets. Proposals and all other materials relating to the project must not infringe on any intellectual property and must not contain any confidential or proprietary information. Remember, you're sharing all of this with the community. The whole point is, whether you're building this project or you're launching it or whatever the project is, you are eventually sharing this with the entire community, so there can be no IP rights. So just be aware if your project has that. You either need to be okay with giving them up, or your project is not going to be able to be approved, whether people like it or not. Dive into the community. So there are multiple places where you can go and engage with the Cardano community. This is what I was talking with Axel about earlier, an ever-evolving landscape. Twitter used to be like the big place to talk with everybody on Cardano and crypto. It's changed. Obviously, Twitter is now X. Things have changed a little bit, so it may not be like the one-stop shop that it used to be when it came to engaging with a community like this. So you do need to diversify. Cardano does town halls constantly. It's a great place to meet other people who are really engaged with the Cardano community. Whether they're voters or not, they may be able to introduce you to other people who are voters. So really valuable people to meet. And again, if they are, and you can get their feedback, and maybe they'll share your project with other people. So this is where the networking really comes in. I think it's really powerful to go to these different town halls. There's so many cool things that are happening with Cardano, especially with the Voltaire fork happening. So it's a really great time to get involved with the community, share the enthusiasm, and meet other people. But there are some places you can try other than X. Obviously, there's x.com/Cardano, where the Cardano community is, x.com Catalyst on X. There's also a Cardano forum and Cardano idea scale. There is also Cardano Spot, but the last time I checked, it didn't have a lot of really great engagement going on with people's posts. I would still personally check it to see how it's doing. Maybe you can revive it. But this is one of those situations where I would not put all of your eggs in one basket, and I would try and diversify a little bit. And then definitely anytime there's calls with other people from Cardano, like there's big Zooms and things like that, join in, participate, and it'll help you find out what's going on in the community that maybe you can help address through a grant, and B, you'll meet the right people. So again, make positive contributions, help others. Helping somebody is actually a really great way to get them to help you, because they want to reciprocate. You've done something wonderful for them. They're happy to do something wonderful for you too.
It's what being part of a community means.
Exactly.
You know, at the end of the day, if you are applying for a grant within the Cardano community, I would imagine that you do want to be a part of this community.
I hope so.
Yeah. So it's very important, to interact positively and honestly and organically with other members of the community. That's how you generally get people to also support you on the other side.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about social media fundamentals. So it's really essential for growing your project's community and establishing a brand. Social media, as any project, any brand, anything, is very important in our day and age, even more within the Web3 space. You have to have a strong brand identity and messaging. You need to choose the right platforms or all the platforms, but have the same consistent branding and messaging. You can have both public socials, such as X, or controlled socials, such as Discord, where you have private groups. You could even have, as mentioned, private VIP Discord channels or Telegram channels with paid access or token gated access. There's many different ways, but social media is really important in building your visibility, which will also help in getting more votes when you will apply for the grant.
And remember that this is something that you can do for basically free. It is going to cost you time, so factor that in. But there are free tools out there that you can build a very simple brand presence, logo, colors, that kind of thing with. Establish your social media, and then just go from there. You could have an entire social media based on memes as long as they're appropriate to whatever your project is. So this is something that you can kind of start to establish before your project is approved through the Catalyst program.
Yep. So a couple of things that are really important to do are social media activities. So these are regular things that you need to remember to do to keep the general community, but then once you're going to build your brand, you will have your own sub-community within the Cardano ecosystem. So you need to give them community updates, event promotions, content calendars that you need to create yourself so that you can roll out content in a more consistent way. You need to diversify your content, which will ensure more engagement. You need to be able to interact with your community members. People love getting shout outs. People love being tagged. It really makes them feel a part of the project rather than just using their ADA to support someone that doesn't even recognize them. We always talk about in these webinars about user-generated content, which is super helpful. And doesn't cost you anything, but some of them are really beneficial. And one of the most important ones, in my opinion, is that you need to constantly have educational resources so that people are clear on what your project is. So make these readily available and easy to access.
Social media growth. So let's talk about growing on social media. The goal of anybody's social media is really to get it to expand more and more and more so that people start hearing about you organically through social media rather than having to be introduced by somebody or having to do a paid advertisement. but that does take a lot of work, and it's definitely not always free. So things to remember to expand your reach. Things that you can do are influencer collabs and partnerships. Again, this is usually not a free thing unless they're feeling very nice. It's entirely possible that they are excited about your project and they want to share it with the rest of the Cardano community, and that is fantastic. But most of the time these days, if there's somebody who would consider themselves an influencer, they're going to want some kind of pay. Organic discovery is fantastic. Make sure your SEO is on point. If you're using only social media and not websites, make sure that your bio lines in any of your social media is very, very clear of exactly what it is, so that if somebody was searching for you, those keywords are very specifically in your headline. So that's really where your SEO is coming from on those, unless you're on one of the social medias that uses hashtags. Outreach, it's actually really great, I think, to do some kind of outreach. Sometimes that could be finding other communities and introducing your project to them. Sometimes it's doing a DM and saying, like, I'd like to tell you about my project because you really like Cardano. Base it on what social media you're on. Sometimes it's going to be less welcome than others. I think Twitter DMs are often, they disappear. Versus LinkedIn, you could do more of a, hey, I want to tell you about my project because I saw that you're involved with the Cardano community. So make sure you're paying attention to what social media platform you're on before you're doing any kind of outreach.
Yeah, but in any case, if you're going to network with the rest of the Cardano community, it is a form of outreaching it.
Exactly. And you should start going as introduction. Hey, I'm Elli. My project is on this, basically. And they're going to be like, oh, great. I heard about that project. Hopefully. That's what you want them to say. Collaborating with other projects, super great. Yes, share communities. If I have a project and Axel has a project and maybe they're like somewhat adjacent, we can share our communities to each other. Maybe our projects will work really well. Maybe they just go in the same direction. Either way, using somebody else to kind of share, you have all of these niche audiences, let them get to know each other. Marketing campaigns, super great to do. You can do them on social medias. You can do them through Google. You can do them through YouTube. Just remember that the most important thing you need to have is what your specific pain point you're addressing and how you're fixing it is. So it's the USP, the unique selling proposition that you've set at the very beginning to get your project approved. That's your marketing campaign. What pain are you solving? What value are you creating? Marketing campaigns do not have to be super complicated. A lot of times nowadays, it's just about getting the right audience and getting whatever your ad is in front of the right people. Viral posts and content are fantastic, but very hard to make happen. They tend to happen by accident or sometimes with the right influencer, but it's not something I would necessarily just say like, oh, we're just going to go viral and easy peasy. It's not going to happen like that. Sorry, guys. Boosted posts and ads are basically like a marketing campaign, but you're just using a post that you've already created on social media and you're boosting it so that the audience is going wider. And again, depending on which social media you're using, you can select if it's just like a copycat image of what your audience is like and you're expanding it to others, or you can try and replicate audiences from other people out there. And yeah, let us know if you guys have any questions. Thanks so much for joining. Social media community management, plan in advance. Yeah, we do like to say this. Make sure you are aware of potential things that could be happening in your community, whether it's a crisis, whether there's some kind of weird PR issue, whether something bad has happened, that you've already kind of planned how you're going to handle that, and then you can go from there. So real-time interaction feedback, polls and surveys are fantastic. People love those because, again, they like sharing their knowledge and their voice, and they feel like you're listening to them, so they love it. Have somebody that can help you with tech support or customer service, and then pay attention to social analytics, trends, sentiments. these are things that you can build posts on. If there's like some cool trends out there, jump on them if you can, and if you feel like they're appropriate to your project. They're a way to get more eyes on you because it's a trending thing. People might accidentally find you, and that's pretty cool. And then, yeah, continuous iterations and improvements. Always try something, try it again, tweak it, try it again, tweak it, try it again, and just aim for continuous improvements as you go. Everybody's testing something when it comes to new projects.
100%. So yeah, so one thing that if you can, you should absolutely do is attend events. There's a lot of events around big communities like Cardano. Meeting people in real life really helps. I know it's Web3 and a lot of us spend a lot of time on our computers or our phones, but it does really, really, really help. Generally, like in most cities, there are meetups, even if it's a 5-person meetup, you know, if it's a 10, it doesn't matter how big it is, but it's really important to meet people online, offline. But it is also very easy to meet people online. So there are a lot of, yeah, as Elli had mentioned, the town halls, there's the breakout sessions, and you can study the previous ones on YouTube to see how you should be interacting with other people. Yeah, so the goal is to really make a name for yourself as a positive force in the community. People want to support people that bring positivity and good things to the overall community.
Exactly.
Yeah, so really important to attend events, whether online or offline, and yeah, you don't necessarily need to be a clown and try and get all the attention, but just generally genuinely interact with people.
And remember that any of these events you're attending, they can also provide content for you on your social media. So whether you're meeting in person and you're taking a fun selfie with the 5 Cardano lovers that you found in, New Zealand, or you're at an online one and somebody said something really cool about where Cardano's going or where they would like to see Cardano going. These are all things you can post about, whether it's a, what do you think of this? Or like just a cool, like I'm being a part of the community. People like to see that.
Yeah, and if there are no events around you, then just create your own. That's something also that you could definitely do, and that people from the community will appreciate even more. So now let's talk about product market fit, more specifically for the project that you're going to submit. This is super important to attract whales. If you're valuable and visible, they will come to you. You won't even need to network, but it's always
that's
useful,
the dream, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course, but to do that, you need to build relationships with other community members. You need to help out others and support their projects. You need to offer thoughtful advice, constructive feedback, share your expertise and personal insights, and collaborate with others. Look for partners, new hires, mentors within the community before going elsewhere. That will really help in creating a valuable and visible project that will in turn get you the funding that you need.
I think one of the points of the slide is that you're not just marketing your project, you're also kind of marketing yourself. So be aware and be a part of the community.
Okay.
There we go.
So be a connector. So that's yeah. So basically on the following what we just said, if you know 2 people who would benefit from meeting each other, introduce them. That's very helpful within the community. You need to develop your reputation as a professional matchmaker. That can also help in getting a good eye on you within the community. The next one is very, very important. And this will kind of differentiate yourself from people that just want to get a quick grant and not necessarily care about the ecosystem, and people that actually get one grant and can get multiple grants and really build within the ecosystem. You shouldn't approach anything with an ulterior motive. If you want to connect with people, you need to be doing it to have fun, to meet new people, to support the community, And yeah, just overall, genuinely be yourself and show your passion about the Cardano
Yeah,
community.
I think people can usually feel when someone's not being genuine, and it really, really puts a bad taste in your mouth. You don't want to really talk to them anymore. You definitely don't want to support them or their project. So be aware, be yourself. Obviously, if you're a bit of a tough person to handle with other people, maybe dial it back a little, but offer what you can.
Yeah. And on that point, if you're also an introverted person, yeah, same. Yeah, you don't need to go out of your way and change your personality. You can find your skills, such as connecting people together or providing real positive and insightful feedback. Yeah, you shouldn't be changing yourself, but you should be offering whatever you can. I think that's most important. That was your slide.
It was, but it's okay. Respond to criticism appropriately. I know this is one that I have difficulty with. I take it as a criticism. Somebody says like, oh, you should change that thing on your project or your slide or whatever. And I'm like, you don't know me. You don't know my project. I made this and it's fine. And then it's like, oh no, okay. They're looking at this from an outside perspective. Understand. So maybe you need to tweak it. Take everything with a grain of salt. I'm giving myself a cushion here. Be open to other perspectives is what I'm trying to say though. Treat all feedback as a learning experience, whether you're learning how you could do something better or you're learning how you can take feedback and respond in a nice way and not change anything. Respond politely and respectfully. Do they have a valid point? This is very important. Read whatever they wrote. Do they have a point? Take a beat, read it again, see if they have a point. If they do, that's awesome. Somebody helped you solve a problem that you maybe didn't even know you had. And if they don't, move on.
Yeah, and generally you realize they do have a valid point if other people have that same point. And yeah, and if it's one person, like generally it's not something that if you don't feel you should change, you don't need to change it.
And then, as always, don't feed the trolls. If you're on social media, trolls happen. They're not targeted at any specific person or type of project. Just hide the comment and move on.
Yep.
This is yours.
Oh. You can take.
Okay. An important thing, stay in touch. Don't disappear after funding. You are still part of the Cardano community. Hopefully you've had a lot of fun becoming a part of the Cardano community and getting your project to a point where it could be funded. So please make sure you're still communicating with them. It's often a part of your milestones in your project that you are still sharing your project with the Cardano community. Maybe you're using some of them to test your project. Maybe you're making this project like something like this, where you're constantly in contact with the Cardano community. So make sure you're out there, you're posting what you're doing, you're talking about the cool thing that you're doing because of the Catalyst Fund grant. Remember that these people in the Cardano community are the ones who made it possible for you to actually be doing this project.
Yep.
So be gracious and continue to be a part of it. Remember that you need to maintain the trust and relationships you've built. Don't take any of them for granted. You may want to do another Catalyst Fund grant. Right. So remember that you do need to still be having a good impression going on. And then if you're not getting funded, consider pivoting to a different type of project. Like we saw on the big slide with all the fund numbers on it earlier, sometimes just it's more difficult to get projects funded in certain types of fields. So if you still want to be creating something for the Cardano community, it's possible that you may need to just change something about your project that it's going to be in a different category. And then keep building your community. Always remember that maybe you didn't get funded in Fund 11, maybe you didn't get funded in Fund 12. But if you've been continuing to build your community that whole time and you're learning from them and you're taking their feedback and you're talking to them and you're confirming with them that you have something valuable to give, maybe Fund 13 is your round. It's how it happens the first 2 times, I think, that Storm Partners applied for funds. At least the first time, if not the 2 times, we applied for fund grants through Catalyst, and we didn't get them. And we did a lot more work and understanding what the community needed, and then we were able to come in and get funded. Iterations. iterations are great.
Did we miss a slide?
No, I think that was it actually, guys.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if anybody has any questions, please feel to unmute or pop them in the chat. Just so you know, we are Storm partners. We are a global team of experts and early adopters who've been operating Web3 since 2016. We have survived many, many things.
Yes, sir.
And we specialize in helping Web3 ecosystems thrive through different avenues: marketing growth, legal and compliance, finance and fundraising, digital transformation, and education and events. So we're super happy to have you guys here. This is part 2 of a 3-part series designed for anyone who has not been funded through a Catalyst Fund grant, to understand a little bit more about how they can keep going and how they can maybe get going for the next round so they can be more successful. We're gonna give it one more shot. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you guys so much for being here. If you do have a question after this, please reach out to us. We're Storm Partners or Decentral House, where we're having this filmed. On LinkedIn, you can find us. I'm Ellie, this is Axel, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for you guys.
Yes, thank you.